What's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be a how-to on how to change your oil in your SeaDoo. This is pretty much applicable to all SeaDoo models except for the SeaDoo Spark, which is slightly different because of the way the top deck needs to be removed, unless of course you have a newer SeaDoo Spark, but either way the process is going to be fairly similar. So I'm going to break this into two parts. The first half is just going to talk about the different oils and the tools you can use, and then of course the second half will be the process you can follow. So I'll put the timestamp in there if you don't want to hear the first part of the video. So first thing I want to talk about is the oil type, mainly because this is asked so many times. I'll break it down. The biggest thing you need to look for is this certification. I'm not sure if that comes up on the GoPro, but it's the JASO MA2 certification. Basically this means it's rated for wet clutches and whatnot. There's tons of oils on the market that have that rating. The oil that I personally runs is the Liqui Moly. It's a 10W40. The cold weight does not matter. The 40, the summer weight or the warm weight, that's what you need to pay attention to. But you can see here that this also has the JASO MA2 certification. This is the oil that I run in all my skis. XPS is a pretty decent oil. This is obviously the factory oil. It's manufactured by Loop Tech. It's a private label oil that XPS purchases from. Nothing wrong with this at all. It's just that the Liqui Moly tends to have better specs. I had a Blackstone Labs oil analysis done back in 2020 when I was trying to kill some time in the summer, and this, along with Rotella T6, it came out significantly better in terms of included properties or the materials that were inside the oil. I forget what the additives. The additive package was slightly better than what's given to you in the XPS / Loop Tech oil. AMSOIL Marine, that's another good brand. You can pretty much use whatever you want as long as it has that JASO MA2 certification. Mainly, this is going to be more applicable to the supercharged SeaDoos prior to the 325 because they have friction washers, and if you do not have a MA2 rated oil, that can cause problems, premature wear and whatnot. The 325 does not use friction washers, so it's not as important, but still you want to stick with an MA2 rated oil. There's tons and tons of topics about which oil is better. There's entire oil threads on it. It's a topic that's beaten to death. Just run whatever oil you like. If XPS oil was priced accordingly, I would probably run this, but you're paying almost, actually I think it's a little over $100 now for an oil change kit, which includes the gaskets and the oil filter. It's just not worth it for the quality oil that it is. I go with a Liqui Moly kit. You can buy this pretty much anywhere. I get it from Reliable Tuning. I'll post a link in the description because it'll send you the oil plus the OEM filter, not a Amazon knockoff oil filter. You want to stick with an OEM oil filter. Everything you need for, it's like $60 or $70, so you're getting the better oil for slightly cheaper. But again, like I said, I'm not going to get too into it. Really, just run any oil that you like that has that MA2 certification. The next thing is the tools that you can use to extract the oil. You can have a electronic pump. You can use a drill-based pump. I personally tend to use this vacuum-based one because it's fully pneumatic. I don't have to rely on the battery. This one is also nice because you just clamp it onto the battery inside your SeaDoo, and it's fully electronic. It'll pump until the basin is dry. I use this once in a while. I'm not going to use it today because it's slightly cold out, which means the oil is going to be thicker, and it's probably going to take a good amount of time to extract. And this is not my ski, it's a customer ski. I don't want to put unnecessary strain on the battery. So I'm just going to use the extraction pump that I have right here. And I'll put the links in the description so you guys can pick whichever pump system you want to use. But the process is going to be fairly simple. We are going to extract the old oil. And now keep in mind, this is a dry sump system. It is not a wet sump system like a car. There's no main reservoir for the oil. There's various chambers that the system's in, and the basic difference, the basic principle of a dry sump system is that no matter what the orientation of the engine is, It could be sideways, upside down, whatever. It is always getting some form of lubrication, compared to a wet sump on a car where you have all of the oil in the main oil pan at the bottom. If that engine were to go sideways or vertical or whatever, you're going to cause oil starvation. So the downside with a dry sump system is that you can't just pull out all of the oil at once. You have to do a procedure in order to extract as much oil as you can, and I'll go over that in the steps. But that's pretty much it for the background of this. We'll get into the actual video now. Alright, the first thing we want to do is go ahead and remove the dipstick. This is where we're going to be sucking the oil from, and we'll just go ahead and put that aside. Now, I already cleaned this tip off, but of course I'm going to be using the extractor pump. When you're sending the extraction tube down, you obviously don't want to send it down if it's dirty, so just give it a quick wipe down on the rag. And then what we're going to do is send the extraction tube down. You'll send it all the way until you feel it bottom out, just like that. It does not go anymore, and we're just going to pull it back by a millimeter or two. And then, of course, we'll just build on some vacuum pressure here. And we should start to see oil coming out. Yes, we do. So what we're going to do is we're going to maintain vacuum on here. So we'll just have to recharge this every few minutes or so. But we're just going to let this go until all of the oil is out. And you'll hear it's going to start to blow some bubbles or suck some bubbles in here. That means it's gotten as much oil out as it can. I'm going to let this go, and I'll start the video up when that starts to happen, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Alright, that's pretty much it. You can hear it. That sound is what you're going to see, and it's not going to suck up any more oil once it's got whatever's left at the bottom. So the next thing we need to do now is crank the ski over in drown mode. Obviously we're going to pull this out first so it doesn't get wrapped up in the crank, but what that'll do is help push some oil around that's in the various reservoirs that are inside the engine. So we're going to take this out, crank it over in drown mode. We are not going to start the ski. So we'll crank it for 3 to 4 seconds or so, siphon some more oil out, and we'll repeat that process for about 2 to 4 times, depending on however much it takes. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so to crank in drown mode, all we're going to do is hold the gas all the way in, the accelerator, key in, and go ahead and crank the ski. Let go. That's good enough. That's all we need to do. Pull the key out, put the extractor back in, and we'll suction up. It's pulling quite a bit more oil out, and again, we're just going to wait until it starts sucking up bubbles. I'll pull the tube out, do another cranking in drown mode, and then we'll do some more extraction. Alright, this is the second run in drown mode, and you can see we're getting a little bit more oil out here. And if we look at the mark on my tank, you can see we're pretty much there, if not just a little bit more. So this was slightly overfilled, and by the way, if I didn't mention what that mark was, what I did was find the perfect oil level for these machines, extracted, marked it on the tank, and that's exactly how much I know to put back in. That's a marked tank, so if it's at, I don't know, 3.8 liters or whatever it is, I know that's exactly how much has to go back in. So actually we are sucking air in now. So this extraction's done. I'm going to do another round in drown mode, and that should be good, because this one only lasted about 10 seconds before it started sucking up air. Alright, so that's everything we are going to get out of the engine, and if you look at the marking here, we are just slightly above the marking that I have in place, which is good. That means the ski was not overfilled. Normally when I do an extraction, it comes up to here or somewhere in that range, which is a significant overfill. Very common on new skis to be overfilled right from the dealer. If that's the case, you will notice like a lack in speed, or you're unable to hit certain RPMs. I've seen it in probably 80% of the new skis that I work on. They're always overfilled. Very easy fix. Whenever you do your break-in oil change, if you do that, or your first service, you just take some oil, measure what it should be, take a proper fill after that, and then you're good to go. If you do this on your own frequently, it's definitely worth having an a tank like this where you can keep a marking so you know how much oil should come out. Makes it so much easier to refill. So this is good to go. What I'm going to do is drain the old oil, and then we'll go ahead and I'm going to get this tank cleaned out. Normally what I do is drain this oil out, clean the tank, put the new oil in here right up to the marking so I know how much it takes, and then we'll just pour the new oil into the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and prep this now. Alright, next step is to simply refill the oil. So we'll go ahead and get the cap off here, lay it up to the side, and then we'll just pour the new oil in there. Alright, the next step is to just replace the oil filter. In this case, we're going to use a reverted Torx bit to remove the center piece there, the center Torx bit, and the oil cap will simply just lift out. The oil filter is pressed into the oil cap, so we could just pull it out once we're done. I usually, once I remove this, we'll just kind of hover it over the canister just to let the oil drip out and we don't make a mess. So let's go ahead, we'll get started there. Alright guys, on the 325, the intake channel kind of passes directly over the oil canister. You do not need to remove the intake in order to pull the oil filter, but I'm going to do that just so you can get a better view of what I'm doing here. Also, this customer is going to be upgrading their air intake anyway, so I'm just going to remove it to make things easier. Again, you do not need to remove the intake in order to replace the oil filter. I'm simply doing that so it's easier to see. Alright, and with the housing clear and the Torx bit is removed, we could just go ahead and lift this up. Actually, you can see the oil filter popped out of its housing. It's normally pressed into here. So let's go ahead, we'll just get that out of the way. I'll let that drip in there. And we'll go ahead and lift out the filter as well. And we'll let that drip. It's actually not dripping too much. So let's get this over here. And normally when I work on these things, I like to just take a look at the filter, make sure, one, that it doesn't look crushed, which would be a sign that there's an oil pressure issue, or that the ski had water in the engine. This one does not, it looks perfect. And then I like to look in between the linings to see if there's any kind of metal flakes or anything. Again, this one looks perfect. It's a brand new ski, there should be nothing wrong with it, but this looks good to go. So let's go ahead and prep the replacement filter. Alright guys, replacing the filter is very, very easy to do. As you can see, the filter housing, or the cap, there is 2 O-rings that we are going to replace. So you just need some kind of pick or a flathead screwdriver to get under and pull those out. There's a bigger one, which if you're looking at the filter from the top side, will sit on the bottom groove. And then there's a narrow one, which is this guy here. And that sits up against the top. Now, one of the questions people ask all the time when they put these filters back on, when this is fully torqued down, resting in the housing, this gasket will be visible. So if you're looking at it from the side, all you're going to see is, you'll see the red line of the gasket in there. And people think that it's not fully inserted. That's not the case. When this thing is fully installed, you will see part of this gasket exposed. This gasket is not really doing anything for sealing. It's the bigger gasket on the bottom. So as long as you replace that and everything is seated, you are good to go. So let's go ahead. Now what I normally like to do is get these rings, just a little bit of oil. My hands are oily, so that's perfect. I just, you don't want to put these on completely dry. Okay, we'll put the thin gasket back on. And then we'll put the thicker gasket back on. Now, there is a gasket that's under the bolt in here. It's a real small one. You normally don't need to replace that during an oil change. You only have to replace that when this thing starts to, if it ever starts to leak. I've worked on skis with several hundred hours that are over a decade old and they still do not leak. So you don't have to replace that gasket all the time. Matter of fact, when you buy replacement kits, sometimes they won't even send that one in the kit because it's just changed so infrequently. So the next piece is to obviously just put the filter back in, and what I do is kind of push it in so it sits in the housing just like that. And this gasket came a little loose, but that's pretty much it. So we'll make sure this is nice and straight, which it is. Now this is good to go, so we can go ahead and reinsert this into the block. And just as it came out, it will go right back in, and then of course we can drive it back in. And we want to get this somewhat tight. You don't want to overdo it, but it will bottom out and it will not tighten anymore. That's the point you want to get it to. So I'm going to see if I can kind of show you that gasket. I'm not sure how good it's going to come up. It's probably not going to show at all on the GoPro, but if you can see it, there's a little red line on the side. That is that top gasket, or O-ring I should really say. Perfectly fine. That should be visible. That means everything is seated in there. If you feel any binding, or when you're tightening this down, if it feels like it's being cross-threaded, definitely stop, back it out. But that's pretty much all there is to it. This oil filter is good to go. All right, and in terms of the oil change, that's all there is to it. If you don't pre-check, or if you don't extract your oil level into a basin where you can know where the proper oil level is, you will need to check the oil level of the ski. And in order to do that, the ski has to be perfectly level. If it's off, if you have it sitting on the trailer and the ski's leaning up, you will need to bring it back down to level. And what you're going to do is run the engine with the hose on, obviously. You want to rev it up to about 4,000 RPM, shut the engine off, wait 30 seconds, and then you can check the oil level. You want it to be pretty much between the two notches. You'll see there's a divot there. I don't know how good that's coming out on camera, but there is a divot there, and you want the oil level pretty much in the middle there. Obviously, it's not like a car where there's a certain reading and you want it at the full mark. This one, you want it pretty much at level. That'll give you the best performance and all that stuff. So if you need to check the oil level, that's the procedure you want to follow. I'm able to skip all that because, like I said earlier, I have a marking on the extraction basin, so as I'm pumping out oil and there's no more oil left, I know where it should be on there, and I can adjust accordingly. Every once in a while, I'll check the oil level just to make sure everything's fine, but I've been doing it that method for probably 6 or 7 years now, and it's been flawless. I never have to double check the oil level. So that's it. Another question that always comes up is how to reset the maintenance warning. And that will vary depending on the ski that you have. If you have a machine with a color screen, you can go into the menu and reset the maintenance warning, but you can only do that if it's in maintenance mode. And basically what I mean is the first service for these skis is not until 100 hours. So you are not going to get a warning to change the oil or do anything until 100 hours. Most people, myself included, think that that is far too long, especially for the RPM and everything that these things are running on, especially because you're supposed to be changing the oil at the end of the year anyway. So if you don't have that maintenance light, you can't reset it. The only way you can reset it is if you use diagnostic software like what I have, which is Buds, and you can reset maintenance anytime you connect to it, essentially. It's not a big deal because if you don't have the software, you're not going to be bothered by a light telling you need to reset the oil life or anything like that until that 100 hours. And of course, not all skis let you even do that on the screen. An example is the SeaDoo Spark. There is no way to reset the maintenance light. You have to bring it to a dealer, or you have to have diagnostic software. There are some other skis that are the exact same way. I believe the SeaDoo GTI and SeaDoo GTR, which have the smaller screen, I don't believe there's a way to reset the maintenance light on those. But the larger skis like the RXTX and such, you can reset that warning. Again, if you're going to be doing your own maintenance, I highly recommend getting some kind of diagnostic software just so you can do that, but also so you can read trouble codes and things like that. I know that's kind of a crapshoot because it's not applicable to all skis. Basically, the procedure for resetting the maintenance light will vary based on the ski that you have. But that's it for the oil change. That's all there is to it. Very simple. Drain the old oil. Keep in mind that it's a dry sump system, so you may need to do multiple extractions via drown mode. Pull the old oil out, change the oil filter, new oil in, make sure that it's at the proper level, and you're all set. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to comment, email me, find me on Facebook, whatever. I will be happy to answer any questions. I know this gets asked a lot. For the guys that are doing work on these things, replacing superchargers and tunes and everything, oil is a pretty minor thing, but for anybody that's new to the skis, or if they've always used the dealer and they want to get into doing oil changes and stuff on their own, this is very easy to do. You can absolutely do it with basic tools. Absolutely worth trying, especially for how much money you can save. Plus, you get more familiar with your ski, so there's a whole lot of pros and cons to it. So if you have any questions, questions, feel free to just leave a comment or send me an email. Thanks.